Welcome to Kinky Knots Cafe's Proactive is the Way. Proactive is the Way is a podcast brought to you by two sisters who dove into the health and wellness industry, one planned and the other by fate. We have joined forces to bring to you authentic conversations about our personal experiences as it relates to managing our health, working within the industry, and taking our combined knowledge to share with you some pearls of wisdom that you can take with you to live the best version of you. Over the next year, we will host 2 episodes a month. And each month, we will focus on a topic that is designed to increase an awareness of tools and resources to enhance an aspect of your mind, body, and spirit. 2 weeks ago, we covered mind mapping. I provided an overview of the technique and the benefits and shared during that week how I was using the technique for an exam that I had coming up. Then, last Thursday, I highlighted Shang Huang and his tutorial on how he mind maps life decisions. If you missed any of the resources we've provided over the past couple of weeks, please make sure to watch the last podcast on mind mapping and connect with us on Facebook or Instagram at Kinky Knots Cafe. Today, we are going to discuss our overall thoughts as it relates to the book in which we featured and the technique. The book that we featured and can also be found on the Proactive is the Way approved book list, or Kinky Knots Cafe's approved book list, was Mind Mapping by Kam Knight. Tiffany, what were your overall thoughts about the book?
So the book was good. As we previously discussed prior to this recording today, that it's probably not the best audiobook or the best information or data to get from an audiobook. Well, really, the first 3 chapters. But that my summary would be, because I'm always looking for how something applies or how something is connected to another thing. And I think his background was he was a CPA, and he kind of dove into writing and doing mind mapping to be more effective. So in his day-to-day activities of daily life.
Okay.
So for me, what I was looking for was a connection. And so basically what mind mapping is for me right now, where I am in my life, grad school, working, is I do actually use mind mapping, but it's more through the fishbone diagram, the Ishikawa, for root cause analysis.
Okay.
So in nursing and in medicine, we try to figure out things. We have to brainstorm. Okay. And so mind mapping, the primary focus is taking one idea or taking a problem and then finding the connections, building away from it. And I'm sorry, because the arrows in an Ishikawa diagram are different than the way the mind map, as I'm thinking about it, go away from the topic.
Okay.
But in some ways,
when you say go away from it, do you mean like trying to determine what is not a cause of it?
Well, so like in mind mapping, you're finding all the connections, like
Oh,
no matter what,
correlations.
the
Right.
correlations, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um, no matter what. In Ishikawa was like using the fishbone diagram, like trying to find like cause and effect, basically.
Okay.
Um, that's what, but it's still mind mapping.
Yeah, I was going to say it still sounds like it's a bit of mind mapping
It
because
is
I'm going to
totally mind mapping. It's
yeah.
totally mind mapping,
Okay.
but you're finding it's more about cause and effect, like root cause analysis. So,
Okay.
for example, let me give you an example because I'm kind of babbling. Um, I want to know um, if walking improves systolic blood pressure, right?
Okay.
So in mind mapping, you're going to place your topic or your concept, whatever it is, you're always going to place it in the circle in the middle, and then you're going to start.
So your hypothesis is going to go in the center.
Right.
Okay.
For cause and effects, root cause analysis, like type mind mapping in nursing, you make a fish. So the fish head is on this end. And in the fish head, that's your maybe you could pull it up, but that's your topic or your
Main topic, your focus, your hypothesis.
focus. Yeah. And then you make a fish body.
Okay.
And normally there's 4 categories.
Mm-hmm.
So in mind mapping, you don't necessarily do categories. It can be
You can categorize.
you can categorize, but it seemed like it was a little bit more broad
Mm-hmm.
with the type of mind mapping that I'm doing with school and with work is a little bit more focused.
Okay. And honestly,
Narrow,
mind mapping
not focused, narrow.
narrowed it down. Yeah, you're right, because the whole idea of mind mapping is to try and think broadly so that you can find different um
Ways to approach
correlations.
something.
Yes,
Yeah, but it
correlation
allows
to
you
a
to
particular topic.
approach.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm. So, go ahead.
I was just going to share. So it does correlate. I have not had an opportunity to study that particular technique, but it does sound pretty relevant in that regard. And mind mapping, to go back on something what you said, that you felt that where there's a difference, the reality is with mind mapping, it's very versatile. And I think when we talk about Kam's book, which is something that I really liked, is that you can use it in every facet of life. I brought up the topic because, of course, we were reviewing Designing Your Life earlier this year, which is how we got to mind mapping, actually, and why I brought this back up a little bit later in the year, because I wanted folks to know when we started talking about Odyssey plans, how to leverage mind mapping to develop those Odyssey plans. And so mind mapping, it can be used for designing your life, right? It can also be used for something as trivial as grocery shopping. So you really can make it your own. And so to go back to the question that I had asked, and I just wanted to make sure that I addressed my piece on it as well, is that I really did like the book. The reality is that within, especially Kam's book, the first 3 chapters, and you alluded to it earlier, is really where all of the good stuff is in terms of what is mind mapping, the benefits, etc. And I highlighted all those details during 2 weeks ago during our podcast on mind mapping. So if you want to learn a little bit more about the actual process, benefits, etc., strongly encourage you to go back and take a look at that podcast. You talked already a little bit about the technique, which is a great segue. You shared how you've used it. It wasn't mind mapping. It was titled Kawi, how do
It's
you say?
called cause and effect diagram. It's
And
called
I'll
it's
bring it up.
violation.
Yeah, I'll put up a quick overview of that so our listeners can kind of see the differences and then do their own research to see the correlation to the overall mind mapping technique. But I will share that I actually did have a chance to use the mind mapping technique. Have I
Saw
ever
that.
used? Huh?
I saw that what you did with the anatomy. I thought that was great.
Yeah. So I used it during or for in preparation for my test as a group fitness instructor. And I will tell you that I really, really enjoy the process. I was trying to think, had I ever used this particular technique before? And I think in business school, I remember using it for a marketing project when I was starting my MBA, and I used it then, but I did not use it in depth. It was like something we just had to do because we had talked about it, but it was not anything that where I thought about using it more broadly outside of that particular project. And so that's what I really liked about this whole technique is the fact that, oh, and I don't know why I never thought about it before, but it's very versatile. You can really use it in every facet of your life. And so, yeah, I went a bit overboard. Let me just say that I went way overboard using this technique because as I started, let me tell you something that started to happen. And I kid you not, what is it? Neurons that within my brain, I can literally feel both sides of my brain working. Like my brain was talking to me. And I think because it honed in on that technical or the left side of my brain and my right, that creativity. So my analytical side was going, my memorization, etc. And then that whole creative side of me just opened up. And it was like I became a whole new person. And I started drawing figures, right? And so, and I'll tell you,
I saw that. I was like, well, you were so into art when we were younger. So
I
that was just,
was, and it came back. It came right back like boom. I was like, wow, where did that come from? And I just started, and I will tell you, it helped me because I took the test, and I'm going to tell you there was a portion of that test where it had me review the lumbar, okay, the vertebrae. And it was asking me all these questions about the vertebrae. And I look to the corner and I can see my
vertebrae.
draw. Yeah, I could see my entire drawing. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's the cervix. And that's this is the thoracic and this is the lumbar. And I mean, I can see it all. And it just came up like this image in my mind. And I got those questions right. And so I was like, this is gold right here. This is
Right.
gold. And so let's talk a little bit about
Gonna use just constantly.
yeah, well, so
Well, when you need to leverage or tap into something like if you what it was really good for
what's
is
that?
if you hit a roadblock, in your studies or in your like, okay, so how can I diversify this so I am, maximizing my potential for understanding. So
Right.
you can use mind mapping. For
It
me,
really is.
it would be used because it would develop communication tools. It helps you communicate better with like groups of people. Like because you have now created diversity like within your thought and your thought process. And so then when you're sharing with, other people, you already looked at the many different ways that it could possibly occur, whatever the
Yes.
topic is.
Absolutely. Yes. So bringing in other folks, going back to that whole idea of leveraging folks, their background, leveraging their expertise to get a different perspective and using that in a group setting. And he talks about how we can use it most effectively in a group setting as well. So not only was this book, it was a good read, but it also, you don't technically have to read the entire book, right? You can
Right.
actually, when you're ready to use a component, say for if you're writing or if you have group projects or if you're going, I just thought that was so funny because he had a section in there for grocery shopping. I was like, really? Really?
People hate
I
grocery shopping.
love grocery shopping. I will all day. I didn't think about ever doing a mind map around my grocery shopping, but because I have the store laid out in my head, I know what I'm doing, where I'm going, what I'm tasting. I mean, everything. So I love that. But it really spoke to me. And so I want to jump in, some pros and cons with regards to this technique. While you per se did not use this specific technique, you used an element that correlates heavily with the concept of mind mapping. Can you talk to me a little bit about where you think what are the biggest pros and what are the biggest cons that you see with this overall technique?
So the con only would be the time piece that it's involved in utilizing this as a tool. And it also depends on like where you are in your life. Like, yeah, this is totally appropriate for someone who is entry level, especially like
Okay.
in education, or someone who is in school, but grade school or intermediate school. But or also it depends on the subject matter that you're studying as well too. So like if you're in science, tech, engineering, things like that, that may be more useful for you. But what I found is I was like, okay, I need to break this down a little bit. That's all well and good, that that particular technique that he's using.
Mm-hmm.
um, and let me back up. And if you need to learn a topic, like really learn a topic, like what you were doing,
Mm-hmm.
um, because you're committing some things to memory.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that's kind of a con. I just think that it's a very positive tool. It was a very positive concept to introduce.
Mm-hmm.
So the pros would be for me is communication. So it can basically be used as a communication tool. You can integrate this into like doing reports. So
Okay.
like if you're doing something and you're trying to capture like the most like you're trying to capture the most profound or the most useful points for a topic, then I definitely would say, hey, use mind mapping.
Okay.
Use mind mapping to, expand upon your topic so that you are able to give give depth, because you're also able to give depth,
Yeah.
right? And you because you're able to look at something on its entire whole and then break it down to what actually is most useful. And right now that's kind of where we are, right? We're looking for things that are most useful because of time management. So
Mm-hmm.
for me right now, everything is, time management. Okay, how can I find what is my easier way to do this? But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so my
And
map kind
that's
of like my mapping is kind of like a chat GPT.
actually, so I'm glad you brought that up because I was thinking to myself, so it might be a tool that will be where I find use is leveraging it before chat GPT.
Okay.
And I say that because I think it's important while we do have tools like Chat GPT, artificial intelligence tools that think much more broadly, think faster than us. I think it's also still good that we challenge ourselves in that way, right?
True. Uh-huh.
Yes, we can take the easy way out, or I shouldn't even say it's the easy. It's actually being smart,
I
right?
think so too.
Leveraging these tools. And I never in a day will say, oh, we shouldn't have these, because I am all about progressiveness, right?
Right.
And the
And the
faster
thing,
we
but the
move,
thing, let
mhm,
me interrupt you real quick. The thing about GPT and AI, right? And people who are like speaking against it, especially if they have used it or even if they have not realized that it's actually been a part of your existence for a very, very long time.
already.
It just now has a even more formal name, and they're basically bringing it to the forefront because while they were creating it, they didn't want people to tap into it, is what I believe. But anyway,
But we were tapping into it because Google, it's interesting. Google was an element of that. And I'm sure they used a lot of data, which is probably why you saw it always in the news about data breach. And are they using this, the ethical use of that data without letting folks know, right? But they've been capturing all this data that we've been doing to do what? To give us better answers, better response, better
right.
information. So we've
Uh-huh.
already been using it for really. When did I start using computer? 1995. I think that's when I received my first email.
I don't
So
even
we've been,
remember. I don't. Maybe
yeah,
I was at Hampton. I was at
yeah, I
Hampton.
was at Hampton. That's when I remember 1995. No, maybe 97, 98 is when I like started using computers heavily. But, so and using the internet. So they've been gathering this data for a very long time and trying to improve the data and giving us recommendations, etc. But now they're trying to do it in a way where the information is evidence based, right? And more.
Because the way it is right now, it's not.
No, when you go to Google, right? Because you get all types of stuff, and you like, dang, you really got to do research to dig and make sure, okay, is this website legit? Where did these individuals get their resources from? And then you have to go research the resource of the resource, so it's just, but Chat GPT is supposed to be designed to kind of manage all of that for us, right? But they in even in that, they have to be really careful because they are taking an element of what our thoughts, our comments are. I was reading an article where they said Chat GPT, they asked it a mathematical question and it gave them the wrong answer. And
And
I
it's because
think,
of the source is sources.
yes, it's sourcing
So
information from what other people are saying. So that is definitely something that they would have to be mindful of. But I do like the idea of a Chat GPT, but I love the idea of mind mapping, to go back to what we were sharing, because I think it's so important that we don't lose the skill set. I don't,
exactly, I
right?
agree.
So if you don't use it, you're going to lose it. And I think it's so critical that we get in the habit of initially, launching our creativity first, and then leveraging those resources like Chat GPT to help bring substance, right? To help bring foundation, to broaden, add more depth to our thought process, to help us have a different perspective.
Yes,
That's
I agree.
another thing too. I think about people who have prejudices and things of that nature and dare not go ask someone. Well, shoot, don't come to me. Go to Chat GPT, and like, I like that it allows individuals to be confident. It's, I don't want to say confidential, but more private in their research, in trying to get answers, etc. So but yeah, so mind mapping, it definitely is a critical skill. I think it needs to stay around, and I think we need to learn to leverage it even more so that we can continue to grow, to develop, to be more progressive. Now they do have some tools out there to build mind maps. But I will tell you, because there's applications. You don't have to do this by hand. We were talking about how it's time consuming. It is extremely time consuming if you do it by hands. But I will tell you, I thought when I did it by hand, it really helped to cement what I was learning.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Because you do need to do it by hand because oh my goodness. Was it him that said it, or did I just read this article? But anyway, because it does cement the information, it helps for retention.
Yes, it really
You're not
does.
necessarily like the interaction that you're having uh between, inputting something into a device for it then to create whatever you're inputting. You may or may not retain that information.
Right. Yeah, I could have used the tool, but something said don't use the tool. It said use in my mind, it was like, no, use your hand, because that hand to paper to brain connectivity, I think I think there is a study about that, about how when we write, we have the tendency to not only recall, but also, well, yeah, to recall is what it was, what it was geared around, our ability to memorize and recall. But so it was definitely good for that. But time consuming was a con that I saw, but a worthy con. I think there was a benefit in it. And besides, you shouldn't be studying last minute anyway, right? So we should take that time over a period of time to study. Like I had been studying for 4 weeks. There's applications. That was a pro. Another pro, it's therapeutic, especially if you use color. Like, so some of the modalities that I gathered for this was like line paper, my mechanical pencils, 0.9 millimeter. Big mechanical pencils.
I love a good mechanical pencil.
I'm telling you, and it's cheap. It's cheap. I was like, ooh, but and then colored pencils, and I got everything that can be erasable, even my colored pencils. So if I made an error, because when you're creative, you tend to erase a lot because you make edits, you adjust, etc. And so so those were my modalities. Those three things. And I only did my studying. I had already studied 4 weeks before, but for these last couple of weeks doing the mind mapping, I incorporated that into my studies. And I will tell you once again, as I mentioned, I just took the test, and that lumbar part, I couldn't remember. The vertebrae, I couldn't remember a dang on thing. But the moment I pulled that image in, I was like, doo-doo-doo-doo. It's like my brain just started working. It was very interesting. Using shapes, symbols, images in this particular tool is required, I think.
It's a higher level. A higher level learner will do that.
Yes.
If you're not doing that, then you're not going to reach the potential in your learning that you desire to have.
Yeah, it was like doodling. Were you ever in like, just like when we were in high school and the teacher's talking and you're like doodling next to what they're talking about, like drawing a heart, a lung, or something like that?
Yeah.
So I thought that's what it made me recall, was back in high school when I would doodle in my books. And I look at my kids are the same way, especially May. Oh my God, you open up her book and she's got her little notes, and she's got all these drawings. Now, none of her drawings correlate to what the heck she's learning, but I just, because she draws all these comic figures, but just reminded me of that. But having purpose behind the drawings helped to cement the knowledge that I gained. So using a blend of an outline and art really tapped into both sides of my brain. And then
and you can reverse it too. You can start your mind map and make your outline from your mind map.
true.
With outline.
But I like the outline within the mind map, because I built an outline in the mind map, and it wasn't necessarily an outline, but under different categories, I put my notes with regards to that category. And I think that helped once again to kind of help with my ability to recall. I remember Aja, she was like, does this really work? And I was like, yeah, Aja, it works. And she was like, well, what is, oh my goodness. She said, I have my book here, you guys, because she was like, well, what is ATP? She wanted me to help her understand. I was like, and I was able to explain it to her, and she was just like, oh, okay. I was like, yeah, you should use it too. And folks, if you didn't check out the last episode, go check it out, because in there we talk and we discuss about the impact of mind mapping on children. And so there's a great clip that I shared within that particular episode. Please make sure that you go check it out. And then lastly, just a recommendation when you're doing mind mapping, I think giving yourself enough space to categorize is so important. And I'll show you if you can see this. Tiffany, tell me if you can see this. But I say space because, and I'm just going to show my book here, and I'll probably try and do this a little bit better.
And see, the colors make it fun and make you want to read it.
Yes.
Like review it. It makes you want to go back and review it, because you're like, oh, those colors were so nice.
Yes, and I had like all my colors sitting with me, and I'm like drawing, and it just like took me back to childhood. I don't know. I loved it. I really did. But I noticed when I put too many mind maps on one page, as you can see here, I had too many. It all blended together. And then I was like, well, what happens if I'm testing it. I said, well, what happens if I just put one on a page, right? And so I was like, oh, I can make it bigger. And it helped me to, when it came time to recall, I can see the images better. And so I think when you mind map, it is good. It's good to have it all in one centralized location, but at the same time, if it gets too congested, I think it's going to negatively impact your ability to recall, because you'll start blending things together that did not need to be blended.
True.
All right. So,
technique when I was in school, when we used to use note cards.
Yes.
When we used to use index cards.
Yes, I still use them.
I do too. But I think the smaller that I wrote, the more I remembered. But anyway.
Okay. Yeah.
But anyway, go ahead.
So would you recommend the book?
Absolutely. I think anything that I'm going to recommend anything that we're doing.
Right. Honestly, at the end of the day, because we probably would stop reading it like, I'm not reading
right,
it.
Like, don't do something else, because
we're not doing that one.
No, but it's definitely a recommended read, just something to add to your arsenal of knowledge. So that you can, design the life you wish to lead.
Absolutely. All right, folks. Well, that is a wrap. So before we head out, as you all know, we are lovers of music. And guess what, folks? Guess who has a song choice for us today?
But
what?
Say that. I don't want people to go read the lyrics. I just want you to read the hook.
That's you had one, because I had one today. I was like, I had time for this. I had time to research, and I was so excited. What's your song choice for today?
So free your mind and the rest will follow.
And I kid you not, I don't know all the lyrics to the song. I think all I know is the hook, but
And I think everybody only knows the hook. But it was by oh man, I just lost the artist. Why oh, In Vogue.
In Vogue. I was like, Envy? In Vogue. That's right. I remembered. All right. Yes. Yes. And it really does. Honestly, the word free, that phrase, free your mind, this technique literally opened up my mind to opened up neurons. I kid you not, new pathways. I guarantee I created new pathways within my mind. That's how good it was for me. And of course, I'm wondering if folks are like, well, did she pass? I mean, she all talking about this exam, etc. Yes, folks, I passed.
You're looking at America's Mom, the newest group fitness instructor.
I went for my group fitness instructor certification and I passed. And I'm so excited. And thank you. Yeah.
Pats on your back.
Girl, patting left and right. I had to take a nap. I remember I was like, Tiffany, I need to take a nap after that. Oh yeah, I had to take a nap after that. But all right, you guys. Well, it definitely was a pleasure getting to connect with you again, Tiffany. It has been so long. Hopefully we'll be doing this again. We have just 2 more months of this particular series, our 2022 into 2023 theme of designing your life. Just a couple more months to go. So thanks you all for joining us in 2 weeks. So we will be launching our next session on the Odyssey plans. More details to come. To access all replays or learn more about Kinky Knots Cafes, Proactive is the way. Please visit www.kinkyknotscafe.com. Proactive is the way, my friends. Take good care.